Liberty Nation with Tim Donner.
Say what? Say what? Say what? One more time.
We kick things off with our signature segment, Say What, where we roll out some of the most wacky, astonishing, damnable, and ultimately revealing things uttered by politicians and the chattering class in this damnable year of 2020. So as if we haven't been through the ringer enough this year, President Trump says no to a virtual debate, even though he is by most accounts well behind in the race and appears to be falling further behind. But one thing's for sure, Trump had two chances to get in front of millions of people before the election, and now it's down to one if the scheduled third debate even goes forward on October 22nd. This latest episode occurring the day after Mike Pence and Kamala Harris clashed in their one and only vice presidential debate on Wednesday. Their verbal joust has been thoroughly evaluated at this point, but the residue remains from two running mates more likely to ascend to the presidency than ever, given that Biden's in a state of cognitive decline and Trump has been hit with COVID-19. And both of them came out swinging it, with Senator Harris condemning Trump in the starkest possible terms on his handling of the pandemic, and Pence firing a broadside back at her.
The American people have witnessed what is the greatest failure of any presidential administration in the history of our country. And our plan is about what we need to do around a national strategy for contact tracing, for testing, for administration of the vaccine, and making sure that it will be free for all.
And quite frankly, when I look at their plan that talks about advancing testing, creating new PPE, developing a vaccine, it looks a little bit like plagiarism, which is something Joe Biden knows a little bit about.
Pence referring to Biden being forced out of the 1988 presidential race after revelations about him plagiarizing speeches and law school submissions. But listen to the exchange between the VP candidates when Harris was asked if she would welcome a vaccine which may well come before the end of the year.
If the doctors tell us that we should take it, I'll be the first in line to take it. Absolutely. But if Donald Trump tells us that we should take it, I'm not taking it.
The fact that you continue to undermine public confidence in a vaccine, if the vaccine emerges during the Trump administration, I think is unconscionable. And Senator, I just ask you, stop playing politics with people's lives.
Pence went on to re-emphasize the same issue about the Supreme Court that Joe Biden sidestepped in last week's debate with Trump.
Your party is actually openly advocating adding seats to the Supreme Court, which has had 9 seats for 150 years, if you don't get your way. This is a classic case of if you can't win by the rules, you're going to change the rules.
Like Biden, Harris refused to answer whether she favors packing the court. But as the debate closed, the moderator, Susan Page, who'd done a good job most of the night, unlike Chris Wallace at the presidential debate last week, asked the question now being openly debated on the left, whether Trump would leave the White House if he loses but refuses to accept defeat. And Vice President Pence put it right back in the face of Senator Harris and her leftist colleagues.
Senator, your party has spent the last 3.5 years trying to overturn the results of the last election. It's amazing. When Joe Biden was vice president of the United States, the FBI actually spied on President Trump and my campaign. We've all seen the avalanche, what you put the country through for the better part of 3 years until it was found that there was no obstruction, no collusion, case closed. And then Senator Harris, you and your colleagues in the Congress tried to impeach the President of the United States over a phone call.
And thus ended what was a command performance by Mike Pence, clearly far more effective than Trump's first debate. Kamala Harris, not so good. But then we should hardly be surprised. This was a woman whose personality turned people off as she bombed out in her own presidential campaign. The question now is whether a VP debate ever really influences the outcome of any election. But if there ever was one, it might be this one, because health concerns about both presidential candidates means the possibility of either Kamala Harris or Mike Pence becoming president before the 2024 election seems more real than ever, after the COVID-plagued but recovering president ignited yet another firestorm with a tweet saying he feels better than he has in 20 years, and this statement about COVID right after his release from Walter Reed Hospital.
Don't let it dominate you. Don't be afraid of it. You're going to beat it. We have the best medical equipment. We have the best medicines, all developed recently. I know there's a risk, there's a danger, but that's okay. And now I'm better, but don't let it dominate your lives. Get out there, be careful.
And then, of course, the elite Trump-hating media went nuts.
Now we see this tweet, which is heartless. It is cruel.
What does that mean, don't be afraid of it? I mean, first of all, it's a contagious disease that kills people. There's nowhere to even begin.
It's just so horrible, so destructive to say I feel better than I have in 20 years.
He's saying this is so disrespectful.
The president says it's no big deal. I mean, it's outrageous.
It's disgraceful, Wolf. It's absurd.
Bob Woodward, Jake Tapper, Wolf Blitzer among the commenters there. Meanwhile, Biden remained mostly in his basement this week, but did appear on an NBC News town hall and answered the enduring question of whether he would be overrun by the growing socialist movement in his party.
I look like a socialist. Look, I'm the guy that ran against the socialists. Remember, I got in trouble in the whole campaign. 20-some candidates. Joe Biden was too centrist, too moderate, too straightforward. That was Joe Biden. I have taken on the very people that, in fact, we're worried about.
Extra, read all about it.
Election 2020 Big Bottom Flash Reports are coming. On election night, at the bottom of every hour, LibertyNation.com will give you Election Night 2020, 90 seconds at a time, with our Big Bottom Flash Reports. You'll get the drop with our one-stop shop. Tune into LibertyNation.com on election night for our Big Bottom Flash Reports, at the bottom of every hour. LibertyNation.com.